My mom messaged my 10-year-old kid, "You shouldn't come for Christmas. It's best if you stay away." He read it slowly, then looked down at the handmade gift she'd worked on all day. I didn't shed a tear. I just texted back, "Got it." 5 hours later, everything they took for granted started to collapse. My daughter read the message out loud first. Then she just sat there holding the phone, staring at it like it couldn't be real. She looked down at the little wooden box she'd been working on all day, the one with gold stars, glitter, and a tiny lopsided heart in the center. She'd written "Merry Christmas, Grandma" on the inside lid with shaky red marker. It wasn't perfect, but she was so proud of it. Said Grandma was going to love it more than anything she'd ever given her. Then she asked me if she did something wrong. I was standing by the counter heating up leftovers. I didn't even know what she was talking about at first. She handed me the phone and I read the message. It was long, but there wasn't a single kind sentence in it. My mom had written, "You shouldn't come for Christmas. It's best if you stay away. It will be easier for everyone." I kept reading, waiting for the punchline. Or maybe a second message. Maybe she hit send too early and forgot to finish. But it was exactly what it looked like. She said my sister's kids were sensitive this year, that they had expectations, and it would ruin the mood if someone else showed up. That someone being my daughter. A 10-year-old girl who lost her dad and still smiles through it. She said, "You have to understand where they're coming from. They're used to things a certain way, and this year has been hard for them too." Hard for them? They're spoiled. All three of them. The oldest told my daughter last year that only real grandkids get the big presents. My sister laughed when I brought it up. Said he didn't mean it like that. But apparently my mom thought he had a point. I didn't cry. I didn't even blink. My daughter was sitting on the couch, still holding the wooden box. I watched her close it slowly and push it to the edge of the coffee table. Then she pulled her knees up and sat quiet. I texted my mom one word. "Got it." 5 hours went by. No reply. No call. Not even a question about how my daughter took it. Around 8:15 I messaged Stacy. "Can you drive me?" She didn't ask why. She said she'd be over in 20. I put on my sneakers and grabbed the spare keys from the drawer. I didn't take a coat. I didn't explain anything to my daughter. I just told her I'd be back soon and that she should go ahead and finish the movie we'd started. Stacy pulled up with the engine running. She looked at me and just nodded. That's the kind of friend she is. We drove straight across town to my parents' place. They'd been using my old SUV for months, the one I bought before my husband got sick. After he died, I had no use for two cars, and when my dad's truck died in the spring, I gave them mine. Never charged them. Never said a word. But it was still mine. Still in my name. Their street was lit up with decorations, tacky plastic reindeer, blinking lights, all the usual stuff my mom thought made the neighborhood festive. Her house was bright as ever. TV on in the living room. I saw silhouettes through the blinds. I walked right up the driveway, unlocked the car, got in and drove off without looking back. By the time I got to the end of the street, I saw movement in my rear view. My mom came out first, then my dad. Both barefoot, standing in the driveway. My sister stood on the porch, frozen. No one chased me. They just watched. And that was the moment I knew. Not just that I was done, but that they never really saw us as part of their family. Me or my daughter. They used us when they needed to. They smiled when it suited them. But the second we didn't fit into their picture-perfect Christmas, they threw us out like wrapping paper. They had no idea what was coming next. The morning after I took the SUV back, the house felt strangely quiet. My daughter woke up early, wandered into the kitchen and sat at the table without saying much. Her usual chatter wasn't there. She just played with the sleeve of her sweatshirt while I made toast. When she got up to throw something away, I heard the soft thud of cardboard hitting the bin. After she left the kitchen, I checked. It was the wooden gift box. The one she'd made for my mom. She'd snapped the lid in half before tossing it. Glitter clung to the edges like it was holding on for dear life. I didn't take it out. Something about leaving it there felt honest. My phone buzzed for the first time around 10:30 a.m. It was my mom. I let it ring out. Then came the text. At first she tried to sound confused. "Where is the car? You didn't tell us you were taking it. Your father needs it today." There wasn't a single mention of what she told my daughter. No acknowledgement of how cruel her message had been. It was like she expected us to swallow it quietly the way we always had. I didn't answer. Instead, I told my daughter to get dressed. We went out for pancakes. I let her order extra whipped cream even though she usually gets tired of it halfway through. She didn't smile much, but she ate every bite. On the drive home, I took a detour and stopped at the craft store. I told her she could pick out anything she wanted. She walked down the aisles with her hands in her pockets, barely touching anything, until she eventually grabbed a pack of felt stickers and a bottle of blue paint. She didn't bring up Christmas. She didn't bring up Grandma. When we got home, the tone of the messages had changed. My dad joined in. "Are you seriously doing this? You're being childish. That car was helping us stay afloat." Then my sister. "You're making a huge mistake. You should have talked to us first." Talked to them? They never talked to me. They didn't even think my daughter deserved to be included. I put my phone face down and helped my daughter set up her craft things on the kitchen table. We painted for a while. She made a blue paper snowman with crooked arms. I kept glancing at her, wondering how long this quiet of hers would last. Around 3 p.m. the real text came in. The one that told me exactly who my parents had decided I was now. "You're ruining Christmas for everyone." Not an apology. Not regret. Just blame. They were upset they lost a car. I was upset they discarded my child like she was optional. I didn't respond. Instead, I took my daughter ice skating. She'd never been before, and she held my hand so tightly at first that my fingers ached. We fell multiple times. She laughed each time we hit the ice. The laughter sounded rusty, like she hadn't used it in a while, but it was still there. By the time we got home, it was dark out. The porch light flickered as I unlocked the door. We were barely inside when I heard a knock. Sharp, loud, official. I opened the door to 2 police officers standing on the mat. One of them asked if I was Barbara Moore, and if I had unlawfully removed a vehicle from another residence. For a second, I honestly thought someone was pranking me. Then I realized. My parents had called the cops on me. The officer explained they were responding to a vehicle theft report. I didn't panic. I walked to the drawer, pulled out the folder with the title, registration, insurance, all under my name, and handed it over. They flipped through the paperwork, exchanging looks. One of them sighed. The other apologized, saying it appeared to be a dispute within the family, and that they'd be closing the case. Before they left, one of the officers said they'd be going to speak with my parents about filing a false report. He said it quietly, but I saw the frustration on his face. After they drove away, I stood in the doorway holding the folder against my chest. I wasn't shaken. I wasn't sad. I was something colder. Something I didn't have a name for yet. They didn't just cut off my daughter. They tried to turn me into a criminal for not letting them walk all over us. It was the moment I realized the bridge wasn't burning. I was lighting it myself. By the next morning, my phone was vibrating non-stop. Not calls, just group chat messages. The family group thread, the one I always stayed quiet in, had come alive like a kicked hornet's nest. It was full of little stabs disguised as jokes. My sister posted a photo of my dad standing by the curb with a thermos, captioned, "Guess who's hoofing it to work today thanks to someone's tantrum?" Laugh reactions from cousins, a few yikes replies, but no one asked what really happened. Because they didn't want to know. They wanted their version to be true, that I was unstable, dramatic, and mean. That I'd ruined Christmas because I was still bitter about my life. I left the group silently. No announcement. Just gone. About an hour later, Stacy called, half laughing. Apparently, my mom had been telling neighbors the SUV had been stolen in the middle of the night. Full-on fake robbery story. I guess she didn't think the truth was dramatic enough. Problem is, small towns love drama, but they love facts more. And after the cops showed up at my place and left without doing anything, the story fell apart. Then someone, I still don't know who, told the truth at church. That I'd taken back my own car. That my parents had filed a police report and it had backfired. Things started unraveling after that. My mom tried to recover by going to the dealership to ask if she had any rights since she'd been the one using the car. The salesman apparently blinked at her and said if the title wasn't in her name, there was nothing to talk about. She left humiliated. But none of that stopped them from pushing forward with what they really wanted. Revenge. On December 23rd, the night before Christmas Eve, they posted the Facebook rant. Not publicly, but just visible enough to catch attention. Friends, distant relatives, a few of my old classmates. Within hours, people were sending me screenshots. It started fake sweet. Family doesn't always mean blood. Sometimes people choose bitterness over love. Then it hit the gas. We opened our home to her when she had no one. After her husband died, we tried everything to help her pick up the pieces. But some people just want to stay broken. And then the part that made my hands go cold. She'll never have more children. She'll never find a man who puts up with her. But our other daughter? She gave us 3 beautiful grandkids, the kind of joy we always hoped for. It was a digital knife. And they weren't even subtle about twisting it. I stared at the screen for a long time. Not because I was shocked by what they wrote, but because it confirmed everything I had started to believe over the past few days. They didn't think they lost a daughter. They thought they threw away the broken one. 10 minutes later, Stacy was on my porch. I didn't ask how she got there so fast. She held out her keys and said, "I'll drive." We didn't speak much in the car. I just sat there thinking about the 10 Christmases I'd spent showing up, keeping the peace, sitting through my sister's bragging and my mother's weirdly passive insults about how tired I looked or how quiet my daughter was. I thought about my husband. How he used to buffer all of it with a joke or a wink or a second plate of dessert. And how none of them said his name once since he died. When we pulled up, my parents' house was glowing like always. Lights everywhere. Big plastic snowman on the lawn. My sister's SUV in the driveway, probably filled with gifts labeled, "To the grandkids who matter." I walked up and opened the front door without knocking. They were in the living room. My mom's head turned first. My dad stood up halfway then stopped. My sister was sitting in the corner of the couch, legs crossed, arms wrapped tight around herself. I didn't say a word. I walked over to the entry shelf, picked up the ceramic Santa that used to sit on our kitchen table growing up, and threw it across the hall. It exploded against the wall. The sound that followed was silence. Not fear, not yelling, just a stunned, loaded silence that felt years overdue. I walked through the kitchen next. Opened drawers. Pulled out plates. Tossed one onto the floor. Then another. Then I turned and said it. "You don't speak to me again. You don't speak to my daughter. You are no longer our family." Nobody moved. My mom's mouth opened like she might try something but nothing came out. My sister didn't even look at me. I turned and walked out. They didn't follow. They didn't call. And that was the part that hurt more than anything. They weren't sorry. They were afraid. Because for the first time in my life I was done being the quiet one. 2 days after I shattered their ceramic Santa and walked out of their house, I got a Christmas card in the mail. It came in a glittery envelope with smiling snowmen on the front. For half a second I thought maybe, just maybe, it was an apology. Maybe my mom had finally realized what she did. Maybe she wanted to fix something. Then I opened it. It wasn't from my mom. It was from my sister. Inside the card, she'd written a note in her overly neat handwriting. It started with, "I didn't agree with how mom handled things but did exactly what it always does." It erased the whole first part of the sentence. She wrote that I'd overreacted. That I'd scared the kids. That I needed to control myself. Then came the part that actually made me laugh out loud. Not because it was funny but because of how ridiculous and calculated it was. She wrote, "Mom's thinking about speaking to a lawyer. She's asking whether you can be charged for damaging property and making threats." She was trying to sound helpful like she was warning me out of love. But what she really wanted was for me to flinch. Instead, I called someone I hadn't talked to in months, a paralegal friend of mine who used to live down the street. I told her everything. I even sent her a photo of the letter. Her response was instant. "You know your name's still on the house, right?" I didn't. Apparently, back when my parents were having money issues, years ago long before my husband died, they added me to the property title temporarily so they could qualify for some kind of refinancing deal. No one ever mentioned it again. But they never removed me. That changed everything. I hadn't trespassed. I hadn't destroyed someone else's property. Legally, I'd been in a house I partially owned, throwing around dishes I had a legal right to touch. I wasn't in danger. They were. The next morning, I called a real estate attorney. He helped me draft and send a certified letter, formal and cold. It stated clearly that if they wanted me off the title, they had two options: buy out my portion or list the house and split what was left. I didn't care about the money. I just wanted to watch the panic bloom. By that night, my mom was calling from a blocked number. I didn't answer. Then came the emails. Paragraphs of desperation, saying it was just a technicality, that they meant to update it, and that I was making this personal. No mention of my daughter. No mention of Christmas. Just fear. But what came next caught me completely off guard. At 9:13 the following morning, someone knocked on my front door. It wasn't the police. It wasn't a neighbor. It was my aunt. My mother's youngest sister. I hadn't seen her in person in at least 5 years. She stood there with a small suitcase in her hand and said, "I'm not staying with them. Can I come in?" I stepped aside. She didn't even wait to sit down before she started talking. She said she flew in from Arizona to surprise the family for New Year's. Walked through the front door and instantly felt it. The tension, the coldness. My mom and dad were pretending everything was fine, but the second she asked about me, the room shifted. My sister pulled her aside and told her flat out, "Barbara's unstable right now." That's how they were spinning it. That I'd snapped. That I'd lost it, because I was jealous of my sister's perfect family and couldn't stand being alone during the holidays. Then my aunt told me something else. This wasn't the first time they'd erased someone. 3 years ago, my cousin, her son, had quietly stopped coming to family gatherings. No one asked why. My mom had told her privately that it was better if he stayed home, because he was autistic and overstimulated the other kids. They did the same thing to him that they did to my daughter. They cut him out for being inconvenient. And nobody stood up to them. He'll know. So I asked my aunt the only thing I really cared about in that moment. Are you going back to their house? She shook her head. Nope. I'm staying here for New Year's. If that's okay. I told her it was more than okay. We sat in the living room for hours, drinking coffee and talking about things we'd never said before. Not just about them, but about what it felt like to be in a family that only values appearances. The house felt lighter with her there, quieter. And I realized something. I wasn't alone anymore. New Year's Eve came and went with no drama, no tension, and no forced small talk. Just me, my daughter, and my aunt sitting on the couch watching bad countdown coverage and eating popcorn straight from the bowl. We lit a sparkler in the backyard, toasted with ginger ale, and my daughter whispered, "This was better than Christmas." He meant it. For a few days after that, it felt like life was trying to level out. My daughter was smiling again. My aunt stayed, sleeping in the guest room, making pancakes in the morning like it was a mission. No one brought up my parents. We didn't need to. Their silence said enough. But on January 3rd, that silence broke. Not with a phone call, not with an apology, but with a public post. My mom made it subtle. Calculated. The caption was vague enough to seem innocent to people who didn't know the truth, but pointed enough for everyone else to fill in the blanks. She posted a photo of her Christmas tree, lights off, ornaments still hanging. Caption read, "This year was quiet. Not by choice. But sometimes family drifts, and all you can do is pray they find their way back." Underneath, a comment from my sister. "You did your best, Mom. Some people just want to be angry." Then my mom added another comment. "We'll always be grateful for the daughter who stood by us. And for our beautiful grandkids who brought joy even when others tried to ruin it." I stared at it for a while. Not out of shock, but because of how perfectly manipulative it was. No one could accuse her of outright saying anything. But everyone got the message. She was painting herself as the victim. I was the problem child again. The unstable one. The bitter widow. The angry daughter who ruined Christmas and traumatized the family. The likes started piling up. Friends of hers. Distant relatives. A few old family acquaintances. Then came the private messages. From people I hadn't heard from in years. "Saw your mom's post. Are you okay? Your sister said you've been going through something. Family is complicated, but it's all we've got." That one made me laugh. I didn't respond to any of them. I didn't post anything. I just waited. 2 days later, I drove across town and parked across the street from their house. Not because I was going to scream or make a scene. I'd already done that. But because I wanted them to see me. Collected. Not hiding. My mom was home. So was my sister. I waited until they opened the garage to unload groceries, then crossed the street. My mom froze when she saw me. My sister stopped halfway out of the car holding a bag of toilet paper like a shield. I didn't yell. I just stood there and said, "You're not going to keep talking about me and my daughter like we're some tragic story you get to control." Then I took out my phone. On it, I had a recording. Not a sneaky one, just a saved voicemail from my aunt, the one where she clearly said, "They've done this before, Barbara. Your daughter isn't the first person they tried to erase from the family. They did the same thing to Leah's son because he made them uncomfortable. Leah's our cousin. Her son's autistic. They stopped inviting him to family gatherings 3 years ago under the excuse of keeping the environment calm." I looked my mother in the eye and said, "If you keep posting, if you say one more thing about me or my daughter online, this recording goes to every single person who liked that post." She didn't say anything, but her face went pale. I turned and walked away. My sister didn't even try to follow. 2 hours later, I got a text from Leah. She said she'd heard. She didn't ask for details. Just said, "I'm glad someone finally said something." Then she said her son was into puzzles. So was my daughter. She asked if we wanted to come over that weekend. No pressure. Just 2 kids doing puzzles. We went. The kids hit it off almost instantly. Both quiet, both a little wary of people but patient with each other. They spent 2 hours working on a 1,000-piece puzzle of a galaxy while Leah and I sat in the kitchen drinking tea and slowly stitching together the damage left by the same family. The unexpected part? The next day, Leah added my mom on Facebook just to block her. He texted me after. Felt good. I smiled for the first time in weeks. Because finally, the silence wasn't on my side anymore. It was on theirs. I blocked them the same way someone locks a door they never planned to open again. No warning. No message. I just did it one morning while my daughter was brushing her teeth. My mom, my dad, my sister. All gone in seconds. Their numbers, emails, Facebook accounts gone. I didn't do it out of rage. I did it the same way you take the batteries out of a dead flashlight. There's nothing left to fix. My aunt flew home the next day. She hugged my daughter goodbye, whispered something to her that made her smile, then looked at me and said, "If they call me, I'm not answering." He meant it. That weekend I finally took down the Christmas tree. Not because the season was over, but because we never had a real one to begin with. It had just sat there in the corner like a formality. Plastic, hollow, untouched. My daughter never even put up the angel. Afterward we went to the park. It was quiet, cold, and peaceful. He swung for a while. Then she sat next to me on the bench and asked, "Are we going to Grandma's next Christmas?" I said no. She nodded. That was it. I thought I'd feel something bigger. Relief. Sadness. Something. But it wasn't like that. It was more like a dull release. Like letting go of a rope I didn't know I was still holding. The days after that were calm. Uneventful. No more calls from fake concerned relatives. No cryptic posts. No whispers. Just quiet. Until January 10th. That's when I got an email from my sister. It went to my spam folder. She must have used an old address I hadn't deleted yet. The subject line just said, "Hope." I clicked on it out of curiosity. It was short. One paragraph. She said she hoped I was doing okay, that she missed my daughter and that things got out of hand. No apology. Just a carefully worded attempt at planting a seed. At the bottom of the email was a line that made my jaw clench. "Mom still cries every day." That was supposed to be the hook. The guilt. The bait. But it didn't work. Because I knew what my mom cried for. Not for me. Not for my daughter. She cried because she lost control. And then came the final blow. Not from them but from the outside. One of my mom's oldest friends, someone I hadn't spoken to in years, messaged me on Facebook from a new account. She said she'd been following everything quietly. He had seen the post. Heard the gossip. Then she wrote. "I believed her. For a long time I believed everything she said about you. But not anymore. I'm sorry." It was strange. People had always believed my mom because she sounded calm, polished, rational. She'd say cruel things in such a kind voice, people never questioned it. But now, that calmness didn't match the chaos she'd created. The longer I stayed quiet, the more obvious the truth became. And truth has a way of spreading once it finds a crack. Weeks went by. My daughter started sleeping better. She laughed more. Her teacher emailed me to say she seemed more confident in class. That was when I really knew, that I'd done the right thing. I didn't just protect her from a bad Christmas. I protected her from becoming a version of me that spent 30 years trying to earn people who were never going to love her properly. The last time my mom reached out, it was through a forwarded chain email. Something about recipes and angels. No note. Just the forward. I blocked the address without opening it. And just like that, the story ended. Not with an apology. Not with a fight. Just a choice. A quiet final choice to leave them behind. And never go back.